Let me explain something about a man's ego. It's not about arrogance. It's not about him thinking he's better than everybody else. The ego is part of how a man sees himself. It's tied to his pride, his purpose, his self-worth, and his identity. And the thing about a man's ego is this: it's fragile. It may look tough on the outside, but it's delicate on the inside. Now, you might not see it because most men don't talk about it. They walk around like nothing bothers them, like they got it all together. But deep down, every man has an ego that's just trying to survive. And a woman who understands that, who knows how to handle that ego with care, who knows when to challenge it and when to protect it, she becomes unforgettable. When a man is with a woman, he's not just looking for someone to share good times with. He's looking for someone who won't tear him down when he's already beaten himself up. The world already chips away at a man's ego every single day. His job, his boss, society, expectations, competition, failures. He's always measuring himself. Am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I providing enough? And even if he don't say it out loud, that voice is loud in his head. So when he comes home, when he's with his woman, what he needs is a place where his ego can rest. A place where he doesn't have to put on a show. Where he can be himself and still feel like he's winning. But here's where a lot of relationships go wrong. Some women think the way to motivate a man is to humble him, to constantly challenge him, to let him know he ain't all that. You think you're smart, you think you're doing enough, please. They say stuff like that thinking it'll push him, but what it really does is hurt him. Now, I ain't saying don't speak your truth. I ain't saying lie to him to feed his pride. I'm saying be aware of how powerful your words are. Because when you speak, you're either building his ego up or slowly chipping away at it. And if a man starts feeling like he can't win with you, he'll stop trying. Not because he doesn't love you, but because love can't survive in a place where respect and belief are missing. Let me give you an example. Man might not have it all figured out. Maybe his career isn't where he wants it to be. Maybe he's going through a rough patch. But he's showing effort. He's making plans. He's trying. In that moment, the worst thing a woman can do is make him feel small. You start comparing him to other men. Look at Lisa's man. He just bought her a new car. My ex never struggled like this. You start saying things like, you'll never be anything. That doesn't push a man. That breaks him. It doesn't light a fire, burns the whole house down. Instead, what that man needs is encouragement. Baby, I see what you're trying to do. I know it's hard right now, but I believe in you. That one sentence, that one little bit of belief, it can light a man up like nothing else. Suddenly he's motivated. Suddenly he's grinding harder. Suddenly he's dreaming bigger, not just for himself, but for you too. Because when a man feels that kind of support, that kind of emotional protection, he wants to give you the world. He wants to be better, do better, give more. He becomes addicted to making you proud. Another thing women need to understand is that ego doesn't just show up in success. It shows up in how he communicates. When you argue with a man, sometimes it ain't about being right or wrong, it's about how you talk to him. A man can handle disagreement, but disrespect, that's something else. If you raise your voice, cut him off, roll your eyes, laugh at him, or say things like, you're acting like a little boy, that ain't gonna solve the problem. That's gonna make his ego shut down. And once that ego shuts down, he'll either explode or retreat. Neither one leads to growth. Handling a man's ego with care doesn't mean you can't challenge him. You should challenge your man. You should want him to be better. But challenge with love, not with shame. Say what needs to be said, but say it in a way that shows you're still on his team. I know you can do better, and I'm with you while you do. That kind of challenge makes a man stand taller. It makes him step up, because now it ain't about proving himself to the world. It's about not letting you down. You become the reason he keeps rising. And it's not just about how you talk to him, it's also how you talk about him behind his back, to your friends, to your family. Do you build him up or tear him down? Do you speak life into him or spread the worst version of him? A man may never hear those conversations, but he feels the energy they create. He knows when his woman talks about him with pride versus when she makes him the punchline. And I'm telling you right now, a man who feels respected behind his back will trust you more deeply than any man who just hears, "I love you," to his face. Also understand this, men are taught from a young age to be strong, not to cry, not to show weakness. So even when they do open up, it takes courage, it takes trust. And if you laugh at his pain, if you throw his vulnerability back in his face during an argument, that man won't forget it. That ego remembers pain, so protect it. Handle it with grace. Because if a man learns that he can be vulnerable with you without being judged, you will have his loyalty in ways you never imagined. Now, let me say this one more time. A man's ego ain't just about how much money he makes or how many people respect him in the streets. It's about how he feels in your presence. Does he feel like he's enough? Like he's growing? Like he's valued? That's the real question. And the woman who can answer that with her words, her energy, her actions, she holds the key to his heart in ways no one else ever will. Let me tell you something about men that many women overlook, and that is a man without purpose is a man completely out of alignment with who he truly is. You see, when a man doesn't know why he wakes up in the morning, when he doesn't know what he's working toward, when he hasn't tapped into the thing that gives his life direction, that man is a ticking time bomb of frustration, confusion, and sometimes destruction. He might still smile, he might still go to work, he might still make love to you and laugh with the kids, but deep down he's lost. And a lost man, even in a beautiful home with a good woman, can still feel like he's drowning in his own life. Men are built to chase something. It's in our wiring. Since the beginning of time, we've been hunters, providers, builders, leaders. Whether it's a business, a dream, a family legacy, or a mission, a man needs something bigger than himself to chase. Something that makes him feel like he matters, not just to his woman, not just to his kids, but to the world. Something that says, I was here, I did something that made a difference. Now, when a man doesn't have purpose, he starts grabbing at distractions. He'll start pouring himself into video games, alcohol, scrolling on his phone all day, chasing women, sleeping too much, or arguing over small things, not because those things matter, but because he ain't connected to anything that does matter. You ever been with a man who seemed like he had everything going for him, but his spirit was flat? He was present, but not really present. That's a man without purpose. That's a man going through the motions, but not living. And listen, I ain't saying he needs to be rich or famous or the CEO of a company to have purpose. Nah, that ain't what I mean. Purpose ain't about your job title or your paycheck. Purpose is personal. It's the fire in a man's gut that says, this is what I'm here for. For some men, it's raising their sons to be better men. For others, it's starting a small business, building cars, mentoring youth, writing music, serving in church, or working hard to build a better future. It don't matter what it is. What matters is that he knows what it is. See, when a man finds his purpose, everything in his life starts to align. He walks straighter, talks with more conviction. He makes better choices because he knows where he's going. He treats his woman better because he's not bitter at himself. He carries weight with pride. Even when life gets hard, he's still focused because he has a why. He ain't just living day to day. He's building towards something. And that man is powerful. But when a man ain't found it yet, he becomes unstable. And I don't mean violent, I mean unsettled. You feel it in his energy. He's inconsistent. One day he's motivated, the next day he's down. One week he's talking about starting something. The next week he's sleeping all day. You try to encourage him, but it feels like he can't hold on to direction. That's not because he's lazy. That's not because it's because he's in the middle of a silent war with himself. And ladies, here's where you come in. You can't give a man his purpose. Only God can do that. But you can create the space that allows him to find it. You can support without pressuring. You can ask him, what drives you? What do you love? You can remind him of his potential even when he's forgotten it. You can stop comparing him to other men and start encouraging him to compete only with the man he was yesterday. But I tell you this too, you got to be careful not to mother him. He ain't your son, he's your man. You can't want it for him more than he wants it for himself. That'll burn you out. If a man is completely disconnected from his purpose and refuses to even search for it, you're going to carry that dead weight. And baby, I don't care how strong you are made to drag a man through life. You were made to walk beside one. Sometimes a man goes through what I call the fog. That's the season where he's confused, unsure, trying to figure things out. It doesn't mean he's broken, it means he's becoming. Don't leave him in the fog if he's still moving, still searching, still trying. But if he parks his life in confusion and sets up camp in his excuses, then that's a choice. And you have to decide how long you're willing to wait. A man with purpose is different. He might not have it all figured out, but he's moving. He might be broke today, but his vision is rich. He might be failing at the moment, but he's not quitting. And when a woman stands by that man, not because he's perfect, but because he's pursuing, that woman becomes part of his purpose too. And here's the beautiful thing. When a man finds his purpose and he's got a woman who saw him before he made it, who believed in him before the world did, who encouraged him when he was low, that man will move mountains for her. He will grind for her. He will protect her, honor her. So understand this. If your man is still searching, don't shame him. Challenge him. Don't belittle him. Believe in him and don't nag him. Speak life into him. If you see a flicker of something in him, fan that flame. Because purpose is what turns a boy into a man. And the moment he finds it, everything changes. You ever heard the saying, pride comes before the fall? Well, let me tell you something. When it comes to men, ego comes before the destruction. And a man's ego, if not checked, will ruin everything beautiful in his life, including you. A lot of women confuse ego with confidence. Baby, they ain't the same. Confidence is rooted in knowing your worth, your power, and still staying grounded. Ego is that loud, stubborn, insecure little voice in a man's head that always has to be right, always has to win, and always has to feel in control, even if it costs him the love of his life. Men are raised in a world that teaches us from day one to never look weak. We're told, don't cry, don't show emotion, don't let anybody punk you. So what happens? We build up this armor around our hearts and call it strength. But the truth is that armor becomes a prison, and ego is the warden. It tells us we can't apologize even when we're wrong. It tells us to stay quiet instead of being vulnerable. It tells us to argue instead of listen. It tells us to push you away when we feel small. Not because we don't love you, but because admitting that we're scared or insecure feels like failure. See, a man with a big ego might look like he has it all together. On the outside, he might be the loudest one in the room, the boss at work, the guy everyone looks up to. But inside, he's terrified of being exposed. His ego is constantly working overtime to protect him from shame. So when you challenge him, even gently, he hears disrespect. When you ask for more emotional connection, he hears criticism. When you express hurt, he hears blame. And instead of leaning in and fixing it, he gets defensive, distant, or cold. Why? Because his ego tells him it's better to protect his image than to protect a relationship. Let me break it down for you. When a man's ego is running the show, he'll walk away from a woman he loves just to prove he didn't need her. He'll let silence sit between you two for days instead of being the first to say, I miss you. He'll destroy communication because he'd rather win the argument than win with you. And that ain't strength. That's fear wearing a mask. That's pride dressed up in a suit pretending to be power. Now, here's the thing. Every man has ego. It's a natural part of us. But a real man learns how to master it, not be mastered by it. A real man can look his woman in the eyes and say, I was wrong. He can say, I hurt you and I'm sorry. He can let her into his pain without feeling like less of a man. That's what maturity looks like. That's what love demands, because love ain't about dominance. It's about partnership. And a man can't truly lead if his ego keeps getting in the way of learning. You ever been in a fight with your man where you knew he understood what you were saying, but his pride just wouldn't let him admit it? He'd rather go to sleep angry than say, you're right, baby. That's ego. You ever poured your heart out hoping he'd meet you halfway, but instead he acted like it didn't bother him? That's ego. You ever felt like you had to tiptoe around his feelings just to keep the peace? That's ego too. It's fragile, but it flexes hard. It's scared, but it acts tough. And if a man doesn't check it, it becomes a wall between him and real connection. But listen, this part is important. As a woman, you can't destroy his ego and expect him to still love you right. If you constantly belittle him, mock him when he's vulnerable, or throw his weaknesses back in his face during arguments, you're feeding the very ego that's causing problems. Men want to feel respected. It doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior. It means you learn how to confront with care, not contempt. The goal isn't to crush him, it's to help him grow. You speak to the king in him even when he's acting like a fool, because somewhere inside that man is the potential to rise. But he has to want to rise. That's the key. You can't force a man to grow past his ego. He has to see the cost of staying the same. He has to feel the weight of losing good love because of his pride. Sometimes it takes a breakup. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it takes seeing that he's the common denominator in every failed relationship. And if he's wise, if he's humble enough, he'll wake up and start doing the work. A man who is ready to grow will start asking himself hard questions. Why do I shut down when she tries to talk to me? Why do I get angry so quickly? Why is apologizing so hard for me? And that man, the one who's brave enough to confront his own ego, that's a man who becomes dangerous in a beautiful way, because now he's not only strong, he's self-aware. He becomes capable of loving deeply without fear of being less than. He becomes a protector of peace, not a creator of chaos. He stops needing to be right and starts choosing to be real. So if you're with a man whose ego is louder than his love, I want you to ask yourself this: is he trying to grow, or is he stuck in proving he's the man at the expense of being your man? And if you're a man listening to this, let me talk to you straight. Your woman ain't your opponent. You don't lose when you say sorry. You don't look weak when you admit you're scared. You don't become less of a man when you show up emotionally. In fact, that's when you become more of one. Let love humble you. Let it teach you that the goal isn't to win against her, it's to win with her. You can't build a future on pride, but you can build something beautiful when you lead with honesty, humility, and heart. The strongest men don't have the biggest egos. They have the biggest capacity for truth. And that's the kind of man every woman deserves, and the kind of man every boy should grow up to be. Let me tell you something that every woman needs to hear and understand. Men are not as emotionally expressive as women, not because we don't feel deeply, but because most of us were never taught how to express what we feel. See, a lot of y'all sitting around thinking your man is cold, emotionless, or doesn't care about you just because he doesn't say the things you want to hear. But the truth, he's got a whole ocean of emotions inside him: fear, love, insecurity, pain, hope. He just doesn't have the vocabulary or the courage to let it out. Most men have been raised in a culture that tells them real men don't cry. Real men don't complain. Real men don't show weakness. From the time we were little boys, we were told, man up, stop acting soft, don't be a punk. So what did? We bottled it all up. We smiled when we were hurt, stayed silent when we were scared, and fought anger with more anger. And now we're grown men in relationships with women who want honesty, vulnerability, and emotional connection, but we're standing there with a closed mouth and a guarded heart, not because we don't love you, but because we don't know how to give you what you're asking for. You ever notice how your man might shut down during deep conversations? You ask him what he's feeling and he just shrugs. You try to talk about something serious and suddenly he changes the subject or walks away. That ain't because he don't care. That's because in his mind, he's been trained to survive by staying quiet. See, for a man, opening up emotionally feels risky. It feels like stepping into a room with no armor on. And we're scared of how you'll respond. We're scared you'll judge us, think less of us, or worse, use our vulnerability against us later. Now, don't get me wrong, not all men are the same. Some brothers out here have done the work, gone to therapy, learned how to communicate, and are open books. But most of us, we're still trying to figure it out. We want to tell you how much we love you, how much we need you, how much it hurts when you pull away, but it comes out wrong. It comes out in silence. It comes out in anger. It comes out in short, dry responses, not because we don't feel, but because we're scared to feel out loud. Ladies, let me give you some insight. Your man may never cry in front of you, but he cries when he's alone. He may never say, I'm scared, but when he pulls away from you during hard times, that's fear talking. He may not say, I miss you every day, but when he holds you tight at night and doesn't want to let go, that's his soul speaking louder than words. You got to learn to listen to the language of his actions, not just his words. A lot of men love in silence, through protection, through sacrifice, through presence. But don't think for a second that this struggle means he shouldn't be held accountable. Just because he's not good at expressing himself doesn't mean he gets a free pass to hurt you, ignore you, or neglect your emotional needs. Nah. He's got to grow up emotionally. He's got to put in the work because love requires communication. And a relationship can't thrive when one person is talking and the other is emotionally locked up. So yes, be patient with your man, but don't baby him. Encourage him, support him, and yes, challenge him too. Let him know that silence isn't strength, that bottling things up only creates distance. One thing I've learned over the years, especially from my own mistakes, is that emotional maturity doesn't come with age, it comes with awareness. A man has to become aware of how his inability to express himself affects the woman he loves. He's got to see how his silence makes her feel unwanted, how his emotional absence creates confusion and doubt. And once he becomes aware, he has to make the choice to change. Not just say, that's how I am, but ask, how can I become better? Let me speak to the men for a second. Brothers, listen to me. Your woman is not your enemy. She's not trying to make you weak. She's not attacking your manhood when she asks you to talk to her. She's asking you to let her in. She wants to see your heart, not just your strength. She wants to understand what keeps you up at night, what makes you feel alive, what scares you, what inspires you. And if you keep hiding behind silence, you'll end up losing a good woman who just wanted to love the real you. I know it ain't easy. I know vulnerability feels like standing in the middle of the street naked, exposed, embarrassed, judged. But real love is worth that risk. It's worth opening your mouth even when it shakes. It's worth saying, I'm hurting, or I need you, or I don't have it all figured out, because that's where connection lives. Not in pretending to be perfect, but in showing up with your whole self. Ladies, if you're with a man who struggles with expressing himself, don't give up on him too quickly. If he's trying even in small ways, recognize that effort. When he opens up a little, don't punish him for not saying it perfectly. Reward the progress, build the trust, create a safe space. Because if a man ever feels safe enough to share his feelings with you, that's not weakness. That's the deepest form of love he can give. And once that door opens, once he knows you'll love him through his mess, not just his strength, baby, that man will pour his whole heart into you. But if he refuses to grow, if he refuses to even try, if he chooses pride over progress, you've got a decision to make. Love doesn't mean staying in a relationship that leaves you emotionally starved. You deserve connection, you deserve communication, and if he can't give you that, not because he can't, but because he won't, then he's not ready for the kind of love you bring to the table. So remember, the struggle to express feelings isn't a male flaw, it's a learned behavior. But just like it was learned, it can be unlearned. And every man has the power to rewrite that story.